Hi, I'm Matt Blanchette. I'm with AndersonVision. I'm here today with the director of the great new little thriller, uh, Cult Killer, Jon Keeyes, which is currently out on video on demand and in theaters, I believe.
Yep.
I released on the 19th, starring Alice Eve, uh, Antonio Banderas, and Paul Reed. John, thank you for joining us today.
Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
All right. So, how did this project come together for you? Like, were you given a script, or did you help develop it, or?
Sure. So I helped develop it. Charles Burnley, the writer of the script, he and I had known each other for a very, very long time. And so he had written the script and sent it over to me, and I fell in love with it. And there was a production company that I work with, a group of producers at Yale Productions, that I sent it over to. I said, "Hey guys, I think this is something we could really do well with." And so it got sent over to them, and it wasn't with them for very long, but I had done a movie previously with Antonio Banderas, and they had actually circled around with Antonio and Antonio's team to see about doing another movie. And they said, "Yeah, let's look at some projects and such." And they put a whole bunch of scripts together and sent them over to Antonio, and Antonio saw this one. And he's like, is John attached to direct this one as well?" And they said, "Yeah." And he's like, "Well, then that's the one I want to do." So that became Antonio and I's second movie together. And once he signed on, we were off to the races.
When did Alice become involved? After Antonio?
She became involved after Antonio. Yeah. So once we knew Antonio was in it, and we knew that we were going to shoot it in Ireland, we started looking at actors over in Ireland, England, Scotland, places like that, and started looking at a bunch of people. And Alice got brought up relatively quickly. And I was like, yeah, I knew Alice, and I knew of Alice's work, and I was like, I thought she would make a fantastic Cassie Holt. So we went after her as one of the very first actors right after Antonio. Unfortunately, she loved the script and she jumped right on board.
Had How long did it take Antonio and Alice to sort of find a sort of chemistry together as Mikhail and Cassie? Was it pretty quickly, or did you have a little bit of time to rehearse before you started
It
shooting
was
your
it was
scenes?
actually very fast. It was actually very fast. We didn't get a lot of time to rehearse with them. I was able to spend time with each of them a little bit, kind of going through the characters and the character arcs and such. And then Alice and Antonio got to spend a little bit of time, I mean, like hours, a little bit of time together before we started filming and kind of talking about their relationship and such. But for the most part, they had an immediate chemistry that worked really well. And because of the way the story's told and the way that their relationship is, it's developing throughout the whole thing. We were able to shoot that at the beginning of the shooting schedule, and so Alice and Antonio were sort of discovering their characters together as we were going, and which kind of was great for them as actors. It was great for me as a director to kind of do that all in continuity. But they had an immediate chemistry, which thankfully worked out really, really well.
I know Paul, his first day of shooting wound up being with Antonio, and he was a little bit intimidated by that. But he said Antonio put him right at ease. So, I mean, was it? I'm sure the Irish cast came, a little bit after Antonio and Alice had signed up, but were they were they weren't intimidated at all by the star power, I'm sure.
No, not at all, not at all. And it's one of the great things. I mean, Antonio, especially with Antonio, Antonio is just this incredibly humble, friendly, giving person. You feel at ease around him. There's no arrogance, there's no pretense. He's just a super nice guy. And he's a very giving actor. And so as soon as everybody, as soon as any actor at any point, when they were first up and it was their first time, and he was able to find them, he embraced them, and he was very warm with them, and everybody got going. And of course, a lot of the Irish actors, a lot of these wonderful people, from Paul to Owen to Nick to all of these people, they've got such an incredibly vast body of work, in Ireland and in the UK, working with lots of people. I don't think anybody was ever starstruck, but fortunately everybody was just good natured people, so everybody was able to click well quickly.
What I liked in particular about the script was that it didn't really take you by the hand. It gave you a couple of sharp turns as you went on, and it was very twisty and quite well plotted, I think. What when you were developing it with the writer, how much of that did you wind up, sort of incorporating yourself, or how much of it was something the screenwriter came up with?
It was definitely the stuff that Charles, the screenwriter, came up with. I mean, when he gave me the first draft of the script, it was very, very well mapped out. The twists and turns were there, the surprises were there. A lot of the dark thematic material was already there. Really, a lot of what it's funny, it's really a lot of the things that he and I did together in developing was really developing more of Tellini and Cassie's relationship together. But the plot points and the twists and turns were all there, so I give Charles definite credit for all of that.
In particular, Cassie and this, I guess, the title character of the cult killer, um, have this really wonderful dichotomy. I particularly loved the way you shot their conversations over the phone. That scene with the was that scripted, or did you come up with that, pre-planning or on the day? That was so well done.
Thank you. So that was in when Charles sent me the first draft of the script, there was one split screen in that draft of the script, and it was actually not the one that you're referring to. It was one of the when Cassie's at the pub and she's talking to Jamie. That there was just the one, and I was so enamored by it, and I immediately was reacting to the idea of these two characters that are really, I mean, they're integral to each other in the story, but they're really not together in person that much through the movie. It's so many phone conversations. And when I read that split screen, I was like, we've got to do more of this. It'd be great. And so we ended up structuring the other phone calls, so three of them in total, to be split screens. And then Austin, my DP, and we had a lot of fun kind of developing out how we were going to shoot the split screens, and not just doing them traditional like side by side, but coming up with, and then RJ, our editor, he came up with the idea of not only, don't do side by side, do up and down, do diagonal, and we'll slide them in and we'll out, and just have a lot of fun. And it became a really great way to have the two of them visually on screen together, having a relationship together, even though physically they're not in the same place. So that was something that I embraced a lot and we developed out.
Did you generally shoot them separately, or did you try to like have them talking to each other over the phone, or did you just have like the strip person,
No,
off
that
camera?
was that was the other thing. Once I committed to the idea of doing split screen, I knew immediately that I wanted to be able to shoot them together. So we were able to as we went into pre-production, we figured out locations where we could actually shoot both of them at the same time. So, sometimes one of the sequences they were 100 yards away. There wasn't like me jumping back and forth between two sets next to each other, but they had earwigs in, we had cameras going simultaneously, so they were being able to interact together in real time.
Was the as sort of developed the whole split screen and the dichotomy between Cassie and Jamie, did you want to, parallel them more, like show them as being two sides of the same coin, so to speak? And then,
100%.
yeah, yeah. Um, did the ending, I don't want to give too much away because I did speak with Paul before on the day the film came out, so I wasn't too spoilery with my questions there. I'm not sure how spoilery I should be with you, but
Let's
the
keep it not too spoily for the audience.
all right, that's fair. That's fair. Um, as vaguely as you can, maybe. Um, did the ending wind up developing pretty early, and then did you want to make it as intense as it wound up being? Because it was very intense.
Thank you. Thank you. So Charles is, yeah, definitely. There was a lot of discussion. There's a lot of, I mean, obviously, without giving away specific story points, it's a very dark, there's a lot of violence in it. And Charles's script was pretty graphic. The original version of it was pretty graphic, and he went to some incredibly dark places with it. We spent a lot of time in pre-production and in development discussing amongst ourselves, the producers, the distributors, how far we could go, and how far everybody was comfortable with. So for me, I was more interested in making sure that I could take the audience on the dark emotional journey that's occurring in the ending of the movie. I think there was a visceral nature to physical violence. And so I wanted to make sure I was tempering everything in a way that the physical violence on screen never overpowered the emotional violence, and that we horrified the audience in a way that was necessary for the story, but we never turned the audience off. And I think that everybody across the board, I mean, not just at a directing and a producing level, but even art department and makeup and things like that, I think we all found the right levels to relay what needed to be done with the story without becoming, too over the top. But that was always, it was definitely, we started at 100 and had to kind of work our way back to figure out where that right balance was going to be
I
at.
mean, it's still, I mean, just what you imply is just still so strong that I think it comes across maybe not at 100, but at least at 95.
I
So,
appreciate
yeah.
that.
Um, there's also, in a slightly lighter tone, there's also two scenes that I'm being very vague. There's a scene involving a bed and a body, and a later scene involving a fireplace.
Yes.
So I mean, was that complex to set up in, I assume, in the actual house? And then
So
did it wind up being, did that, did you plan on that being as darkly funny as it wound up being?
So we did want both of those scenes to come out as darkly funny as they are. One of the things I think with the story was those are two, as the audiences will discover they see the movie, those are probably two of the more graphic scenes. And they happen at such points. One of the things I think with the cult killer that was so important to me was, we're constantly gaining momentum throughout the entire movie. And of course, the ending of the movie gets very, very dark. And I didn't want things earlier in the movie to overtake them. I wanted to constantly be building and stepping. And so Charles and I talked a bit, and I was like, I think I need these scenes to be just slightly comedic. Just, even though they're graphic and violent, I need them to also have some relief to them, so that once we get to the end, we're still carrying that audience. They haven't been numbed to any of it yet, per se. And
Yeah.
so that was a deliberate choice on how we did that, trying to just keep that momentum building through the movie.
Yeah. I was really impressed just how I mean, even with the background that you eventually reveal, how sympathetic you kept Jamie, even as she's, even with that, you had that whole elegant pan up on the bed as she after she hangs up on the call, and it's like, oh, well, we're actually, yeah. So no, it was I really really enjoyed just the work you put in, the work Jamie's actress put in and Alice Eve put in, just to make sure that we didn't feel like this was you know too unsympathetic, too like this was going too far. I mean, obviously it's a bit violent, but it's not going
Yeah.
for this the purposes of the film. It's not going too far.
No, agreed. And that was something, particularly with Shelley, in regards to her character Jamie, that was something that her and I spent a lot of time talking about early on before we started filming, because we both wanted to make sure that we always kept her grounded in where she's coming from, the pain that she's been through, and why she's doing all the things that she's doing, and that we needed the audience to feel for her, also sympathize with her. I mean, at the end of the day, it's a bit, the movie's a bit of a revenge thriller, both for Cassie and for Jamie. And so we wanted to make sure that we kept some audience sympathy going, especially as the movie develops and more layers of the onion are peeled away, and we begin to understand the bigger picture of what else happening here. Once again, always about building momentum, and to get to the ending that we've got, we needed the audience to care a bit for Jamie also.
And Shelley Hennig, who plays Jamie, does a fantastic job. I mean, she had phenomenal work prior on Teen Wolf. Were you excited when you got her? I mean, was it after you got Antonio and Alice, but before you started production, started getting the Irish cast, that you got Shelley involved?
So we Shelley came in. I want to say that Shelley actually came in right around the same time that we also started doing the Irish casting. We had all been talking about who would make a good Jamie, and we batted around a lot of different names and stuff, and nothing was really hitting. And then they brought up Shelley, and I was familiar with Shelley's work, and I was like, that could be a really interesting one. And and particularly for what she goes through and what she does in the ending, I'd seen enough little pieces of her that I'm like, I really think I can get her there, that we can take her there. And her and I developed a relationship that was strong enough that she had a bit of a safety net in me. And so I gave her permission, she gave herself permission to go as far as she could. And then I just, we kind of figured out where that balance should be at. But yeah, working with Shelley was really exciting, and it was one of the bigger blessings of the movie with what she was able to pull off.
I'm really glad that she was able to pull it off, in this film. Fantastic job. When I spoke with Paul, the day the film came out, he said he called it the perfect date movie. Sort of, the movie where you can put your arm around around your partner if you need to, if they get terrified. So do you agree with him? Do you think this is maybe not the perfect date movie, but a good one?
That's funny. I had never actually thought of that before. Go, Paul. In a way, I can. I mean, in a way, I can. I can definitely see. I mean, it's got its moment. It's definitely got its jump scares, and it's definitely got its, its sort of horror elements that kind of give you that, put your arm around and hold each other's hands and stuff. But I think it also, what I hope is that people come away from it talking and discussing the thematic nature and the material of it. So I think in that way, it could be a really good date movie too, because I think people are going to definitely be left with a lot to talk about when it's over.
What do you hope? What sort of audience do you hope this film gets? Either in theaters or somebody just scrolling through and see it on demand and says, "Oh, this looks." What sort of person do you want to see this film?
I think, for me, I think in a way it's going to sound funny, but I think people that enjoy dramas and character dramas, I think those are the ones that I would love to actually tap in. I mean, I think it's got the genre tropes, it's got the genre elements, it's going to attract the genre audience. But I think that there's a lot of people that just do enjoy strong character stories that would really like this. And the movies, it's been out for a week. It's really still just starting its release and stuff.
Right.
But I've gotten a lot of messages from people that were like, I wouldn't have expected this to be my kind of movie. And I really enjoyed it. It was such a strong story with strong characters that I really ended up enjoying it a lot more than I expected to.
Yeah, I really am glad that I was able to see it for the purposes of reviewing it and interviewing it. It was really, really well done, especially on something that I know you shot very quickly on, not the highest budget in the world, but it was so well done. Now that it's out, have you got anything in prep? Anything past post cult killers that you got, up your sleeve that you may want people to know about?
So I actually got another Antonio movie.
Oh,
Antonio and I also did an action comedy called The Cleanup Crew, that we also shot in Ireland. That's going to be coming out. We don't have a date for it yet, but I think it's coming out sometime around May or June. But The Cleanup Crew is a really fun one, and Antonio is absolutely hysterical in it. And then in the meantime, I've got scripts all over my desk, and I'm talking with lots of producers and companies, and I think we'll see something happening in the springtime. I'm just not sure what yet.
I'm glad. I'll be looking out for whatever Jon Keeyes puts out because if this one, Cult Killer is great and the Cleanup Crew, when is it? When should I expect his first trailer?
I'm hoping that it'll come out May or June. Saban, who did Cult
Saban,
Killer,
yeah.
is also doing Cleanup Crew. So yeah, it should be in the next few months.
All right. Well, I'll look out for it. I really hope, I hope Cult Killer gets, the audience that it really deserves. I hope it gets seen by as many people as possible because it's a great picture. It really is.
Well, I
And
appreciate it. Thank you so much.
you're very welcome. I'm really glad I had the chance to speak with you about it. It was just, you did an amazing job. I just want to state that for the record. Um,
That makes me feel great.
all
Thank
right.
you.
You're welcome. So this has been Anderson Vision. I'm at Blanchette. The film is Cult Killer. It is out in theaters on demand right now. The director is Jon Keeyes. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
All right. You have a great day. Thank you.